If you've ever wondered why a fear keeps controlling your life even after you've tried to manage it, this episode is for you because the thing you think you're afraid of is often not the real source of the fear at all. Welcome to Breakthrough Weekly. I'm your host, Monica Pelayo. Every week, we go beneath the surface of what's keeping you stuck, not to the symptoms, but to where it actually started. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thank you for being back. Today's episode is titled, You're Not Afraid of What You Think You Are Afraid of. Let's begin. If you have a fear or a phobia, you probably believe you know exactly why you're afraid of. Plane, height, the enclosed space, the social situation, the thing that makes your chest tighten and your mind spiral the moment it comes into view. You have probably spent years trying to manage that thing, avoiding it, trying to push yourself through it, telling yourself it is irrational, maybe even trying therapy or medication to take the edge off. And yet it is still there, quietly shaping your choices, your experiences, the places you go, the things you avoid, the parts of life you keep trying to work around instead of fully living. Because here is what most people don't know, and what changes everything when they finally understand it. The thing you think you are afraid of is not the source of the fear. It is where the fear found a home. It is the place the feeling attached itself to. But the fear was born somewhere else, entirely in a moment, a memory, a meaning that was formed long before the phobia ever had a name. Until you begin addressing that deeper place, the fear often continues to repeat itself. It gets managed, adapted around, minimized, but rarely fully understood. And managing something is very different from being free of it, free from constantly organizing your life around the fear, anticipating it, avoiding it, or bracing when it might show up again. Fear is not random. The mind does not attach dread to something for no reason. Every fear, every phobia, every anxiety that feels overwhelming or irrational, there is a logic underneath it. A story the mind has been telling quietly and persistently since the moment it decided this thing was dangerous. And that decision almost always happened early. Most fears are learned. They are formed through experience, emotion, association, and meaning. Think about a baby on a plane traveling with their family. The baby is not gripping the armrest or catastrophing about turbulence. It feels safe, protected, and connected. The fear of flying was never really in the plane itself. It was in the meaning the mind eventually attached to the experience. And that feeling came from somewhere. Everything else, every anxiety, every phobia, every fear that feels like it has always been a part of you was learned, was formed through experience and meaning, through a moment where the mind decided this was something to be afraid of, something to protect you from, something to remember. That means that none of it is permanent. None of it is who you are. It is what your mind learned, and what the mind learned, it can unlearn. Here's what I mean when I say the fear is never really about the thing. When we experience something overwhelming, something that makes us feel unsafe, unprotected, unseen, not good enough, the mind does something very intelligent. It stores that experience as a warning. It links that feeling to whatever was present in that moment and says, remember this? This is what danger feels like. This is what to watch for. Over time, that response becomes conditioned. What once was a moment turns into a pattern, and eventually the pattern becomes automatic. It becomes so woven into how you move through the world that it stops feeling like a response to something that happened. It starts feeling like just who you are. It starts shaping your decisions, your relationships, your confidence, even the size of the life. you allow yourself to live. I have always been anxious. I have always been afraid of this. This is just how I am. But it isn't just how you are, it is what your mind learned. When someone comes to me with a fear or phobia, I'm not focused on the thing they say they are afraid of. I'm focused on the feeling underneath it because the feeling is the clue. That tightness in that chest, that rush of panic, that overwhelming urge to escape, those are not about the plane or the height or the crowd. They are the mind and body responding to a meaning that was stored long ago, a belief that got activated, a wound that got touched. The fear is pointing to something unresolved beneath the surface. It is pointing back to something that needs to be seen, understood, and changed at the root, not suppressed, not avoided, not managed with breathing techniques until the next time it shows up, actually addressing it at the place where it was formed. This is where the real work happens, and this is where real freedom begins. When we find the original memory, the moment where the meaning was formed, where the belief took hold, something important happens. We begin to understand what the mind was really responding to. And as we start reframing the meaning attached to that experience, the feeling that once seemed permanently connected to the fear can begin to loosen. The old association starts to weaken. And as that association weakens, the reaction often begins to lose its intensity because the mind is no longer responding to the experience in the same way. This is why subconscious work and hypnosis can be so powerful. Many of these associations were formed emotionally and automatically, often long before we had the awareness or language to process them consciously. Through hypnosis and subconscious work, we can access the deeper patterns, emotional associations, and meanings driving the reaction instead of only managing the symptom at the surface level. I want to be clear about what this means in practice. It does not mean the memory disappears. It does not mean the experience never happened. It means the meaning attached to it changes. When the meaning changes, the emotional charge changes with it. The memory becomes something that happened, not something that is still happening inside you every time a trigger appears. This is the difference between coping and healing. Coping says, I will find ways to function despite the fear. Healing says, I will find where the fear actually came from and change it there. One focuses on helping you function around the fear. The other one focuses on understanding and changing the deeper pattern driving it. One of my clients, Christy, came to me carrying more than 20 years of anxiety and a 15-year fear of flying. Over time, the fear had become so familiar, it likely felt like a part of who she was. We followed the fear of flying and allowed the subconscious mind to show us where the deeper associations connected to it began. Across the memories of emotional patterns, a common thread emerged, a meaning and a belief that had formed long before the fear ever had a name. In her review, Kirsty shared, Monica helped me immensely with overcoming 20 plus years of anxiety and my 15-year fear of flying. After 15 years, she got on a plane again, not simply as someone forcing herself through fear, but as someone experiencing something that no longer held the same emotional charge it once did. What changed was not just her ability to fly, it was a freedom that came with no longer organizing her life around that fear. She later shared photos from the airport and the flight, moments that represented far more than travel. They represented movement, possibility, and a part of her life opening back up again after 15 years of limitation. She also wrote, Monica did an incredible job at helping me overcome 20 years of anxiety. Not only is she a lovely, kind human, she's so gifted in her ability to help others. That is what becomes possible when the work goes beyond managing symptoms and begins addressing the deeper patterns underneath them. If you have been carrying anxiety, fear, or phobia for years, if you have tried things that helped for a while but never fully shifted, I want you to consider something. What if the thing you think you are afraid of is not actually the problem? What if the real source is somewhere earlier, somewhere quieter, somewhere you have never looked because nobody told you that was where to look? That is exactly where I work. And for many people, that is where meaningful changes begin. We were not born afraid of things that now hold us back. We learned those fears in moments we were too young to fully understand. And because we learned them, we can unlearn them. Because they were formed through meaning, the meaning can be changed. You do not have to keep building your life around fears that were formed in moments you were too young, overwhelmed, or unsupported to fully process. Those patterns can be understood, those associations can change, and when they do, the way you experience yourself and your life can begin to change with them. If you're tired of building your life around fear, if you are tired of overthinking, avoiding, bracing, managing, and shrinking yourself around something that was quietly controlled your experiences for years, there may be a deeper reason it has been so difficult to fully move past it. And there may also be another side to it, a side where the nervous system no longer reacts the same way, where you feel safer inside yourself, where you stop organizing your life around survival. If you're ready to explore what is actually underneath the fear and what becomes possible when it no longer runs the show, I invite you to book a complimentary exploratory call at thethrivingpathways.com/appointment. If something in this episode felt familiar, not just as a story, but as a pattern you recognize in your own life, that recognition matters. The subconscious doesn't surface what it isn't ready to be seen. If it came up, it's worth paying attention to. Thank you for spending this time with me. If someone came to mind while you were listening, that's not a coincidence. Send this episode to them. New episodes drop every Monday. Subscribe so you don't miss next week's Breakthrough Weekly. I'm Monica Pelayo, and I'll see you next time.